Good day to the Sharp Plays audience. I promised some podcast episodes in March, but things have been incredibly busy. And so busy that doing podcasts on top of all the articles, information, new stuff that was coming out, it just felt really forced. And I knew a lot of people wouldn't get to it anyways, so why spend the time? But it's a Saturday today. It's early. The day is quiet. So I figured, why not take a few minutes and tie some of the recent things together in a simple audio message? So let me start with something that was said earlier today, and I'll quote, the new format sort of takes the focus off what you were saying for the past year or year and a half, which was always about the TSP trifecta, end quote. And for those who aren't familiar, the TSP trifecta was TSP Insiders, Hermes AI scores, and TSP Portfolio. It was really the only content that we had for the Sharp Plays premium tier last year. And, so it's a fair observation what the person is I'm quoting there. But where people go wrong is what they do with that observation, because the jump some people make from there is the problem. They interpret evolution as contradiction, as if shifting focus means something is broken, abandoned, or no longer valid. That's not what's happening. What's happening is adjustment. So what I'm saying is this: you should be thinking, you should be evaluating, you should be adapting in real time. A perfect example of that is when I discussed using Hermes scores as a filter of other content streams and started looking at how those correlations performed. It's something that was discussed in a TSP Live alert this month. Nobody handed me that. That wasn't some predefined system. It was simply an observation that I stumbled upon that led me to a potential edge. I kept seeing areas where Hermes scores matched with consensus or with other content streams and what that performance was. It built up in my mind, then I broke it down into data. Simple analysis. That's how this game works, because this isn't a static game. And that's what brings me to the real issue today that I want to get into. I asked the same person a simple question. Is today last year? No, it's not. And that's the entire point. What worked last year is not guaranteed to work this year. Markets change, edges get sharper, then they get attacked, then they disappear. That's not failure. That's the life cycle of this business. Last year, I beat the drum on the TSP trifecta, loudly, constantly. Why? Because it worked. But that doesn't mean it works forever. And when something else inside the ecosystem starts producing, whether that's in play, insiders, TSP consensus, whatever, am I supposed to ignore that, to bury that, to not tell you about it for fear that you're going to somehow get upset about it? Stay locked into one lane just because that's what worked before. That's not how professionals operate. So now let's get back to Hermes, though, because I want to touch on that importantly, because that is really the core of the discussion today, which is Hermes is not Hermes scores. Hermes AI is the framework, the engine, the system that powers everything we're building. Hermes scores are just one application inside that system. Think of it like this. Hermes is the operating system. Maybe you have Windows, maybe you have Mac. Hermes scores are just one app. Apps evolve. Some improve, some plateau, some lose their edge. That doesn't mean you blindly abandon them. And it doesn't mean you blindly follow them either. It means you assess them within the current market. That's the difference people are missing. You're not being told to stop using Hermes scores in your analysis. You're being told not to rely on anything blindly. There's a big difference. If Hermes scores fit your framework, your risk tolerance, your read on the market, use them. If they don't, adjust. But sitting there waiting for someone to declare something is on or off for you, that's the exact mindset that keeps people stuck, because nobody knows with certainty what is going to produce next. If we did, this would be a very easy business. All we can do is identify edges, measure performance, and adapt in real time. That's the game. And let me frame that in a way I think makes it all even clearer. Somebody shared something with me that I thought was actually perfect. They called it the rubber band theory. Try a brand new rubber band out of the box. Put it on your desk. It's just sitting there. What's it doing? Not much. It's not useful yet. But the moment you give it a job, wrap it around something, stretch it over a box, it starts to serve a purpose. And over time, it stretches, it adjusts, it becomes flexible. That stretch becomes its new normal. That's exactly what this process is. If you stay in your comfort zone, one system, one method, one way of doing things, you're that rubber band just sitting in the box or on your desk. No stretch, no growth, no edge. The bettors who last in this game are the ones willing to stretch, to try new things, to adjust, to get uncomfortable. And over time, that discomfort becomes the new baseline. Then you stretch again. That's how you evolve. And that's exactly what we've done at the Sharp Plays. We expanded in play. We leaned into insiders. We accelerated TSP consensus. And what happened? Those are the top performing segments over the last 30 days. That's not luck, it's adaptation. But this is where I really want to drive something home because it isn't a new idea. Some of you remember this, some of you probably don't. You're newer clients now. The Little John Protocol. I know, it's a funny name. Little John, he was Robin Hood's sidekick. That's how we got the name for it. And for those who weren't here, it definitely goes back in time some. We're talking back to 2019 and 2020. The LJP, the Little John Protocol, known as LJP for short, was one of the most powerful systems we've ever had at the Sharp Plays. It was innovative. It was ahead of its time. It became the backbone for what eventually turned into the TSP Live Radar and ultimately Hermes AI. And during its run, it absolutely printed money. I won't get into the minutiae of how the LJP worked, but it was fairly straightforward, and it had three methods of assessing wagers. Scores moving up, scores staying the same, those were known as open scores because they stayed where they opened, and down scores, which were fades. So if a score moved down, you would fade whatever play that was pointing to. Pretty simple. By the way, all this data that I'm going to get into can be found at thesharpplays.com. Click Records and Logs in the website menu, and then click Records Archive. So anyways, the LJP up scores during their during that operational run in 2019 and 2020 had 648 wins, 465 losses, for a win percentage of 58.2% and an ROI of 13.4% across over 1,100 tracked angles, 58.2%. LJP open scores, those went 359 and 259 for 54.9% winners and a 6.9% ROI. LJP down scores, which again we would fade, the fades went 297 and 240 for 55.3% winners and a plus 7.4% ROI. And when you combine all that together, the entire performance of the LJP system, over 2,200 selections put out, it hit 57.5% over a 2-year period. That is beyond elite. Hell, that's even beyond exceptional. And today, we don't use it at all. Why? Because in the final 6 months of its existence, which is included in those records I laid out, it went flat. The edge dulled. The market caught up. So we did what professionals do. We assessed it and we moved on. It was exciting. It was fun. It will forever be a memory. And the money we made off that will go to our grandkids' because of how profitable it was. But now think about that. If I came out today and said, here's a system that hit 58% over 2,000 plus plays, people would line up to follow it blindly. But that would be wrong because it doesn't hit that anymore. The edge is gone. And this isn't an isolated example. I had an NFL algorithm in the mid-2000s that hit over 65% for 4 seasons, and it was providing about 4 to 5 games each weekend and hitting 65%, again for 4 years. It printed money. Today, it performs like a coin flip. If I put it out every NFL weekend for the next season, it would hit 50%, 51%, 49%. Nothing exciting, nothing you can use for an edge. It performs like a coin flip, just like the LJP would today. That's the reality. Edges do not live forever. They are found, they are exploited, and eventually they are beaten. If Hermes gives back 20%, mind you, it's only down 6.24% in 2026, so we aren't planning the funeral yet. But if it gives back 20% in 2026 at some point, it still would have provided an over 50% bankroll growth over 2 years. Not bad. Which brings us back to today. Do I think Hermes scores or TSP portfolio are dead? No. Their regression is well within normal variance. TSP portfolio is minus 15%, and it has had 30 and 50% drawdowns multiple times in the past and still come out ahead. And Hermes is off 6% on the year after gaining 70% last year. But I'm also not going to sit here for 2 years hoping. I'm always looking for what's next. Our team at the Sharp Plays is always analyzing, because while you're riding one edge, the market is already working to take it from you. And this is where people get themselves in trouble. They want to marry a system, marry a method, marry a piece of content. Till death do you part. That doesn't work. I'm committed to performance. The second something starts drifting, I'm already evaluating what is working. What else out there, I should say, is working. Because the market evolves every single day. And if you're not evolving with it, yeah, you're falling behind. That's gambling. You find an edge, you ride it, and while you're riding it, you're already searching for the next edge. Because if you take your foot off the gas for even 1 minute, the market will pass you by, and catching back up to the market is 10 times harder than just staying ahead of it, which is why you never see me or anyone else on the TSP team take a day off. And that really goes for anyone in our entire ecosystem of professional bettors. Sure, we absolutely have fun, but we are always dialed in and watching, grinding, thinking, working. Because again, you take that one day off and it's going to blow right by you. Professional gamblers don't rest. They rest when they retire or when they're dead, plain and simple. And that's what I got for you today. Good luck on today's card. Stay sharp, stay disciplined, trust your framework. The next TSP Live alert will be out shortly, so keep an eye out, and let's have a great day.